Coming up on All About Android, we discuss everything, and I do mean, well, almost everything, from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona this week, including the foldables. We've got the 5G-ables, and pretty much everything else under the Spanish sun. All that and more coming up next on All About Android.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Capterra. Find the right software for your business with over 750,000 reviews of products from real software users. Check out Capterra's free website to find the right tools to make 2019 the year for your business at capterra.com/AAA. And by Hover. Register a domain name and build your online brand with Hover. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. Welcome to All About Android, episode 409, recorded on Tuesday, February 26th, 2019, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Florence Zion.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really talk about that because Ron swooped in last minute and it's like, well, yeah, we'll do the normal intro.
I'm as surprised to be here as anybody, let me tell you.
Yeah, sorry, it's hard to change old habits.
We should probably disclaim it that I'm on my break. I'm on my leave, enjoying my twins who are now home. In fact, one is sleeping right behind me and the other is sleeping over there. I'm gonna ride the mute button in case they make noise, but I couldn't miss this episode, right, Jason?
Yeah.
Like we were texting about it, and I was like, I have to be here at least for the opening segment of the show. So.
It's like Mobile World Congress A, one of the bigger episodes of the year, and B, this is like the year of foldable, crazy, future-forward tech.
We're gonna get to it, but this is the future. The future is foldable, and it is happening now, and I can't be more excited. So that's a tease.
And that is like.
Let's introduce our guests.
Yes, that is like the definition of a show that Ron must be here for. So Ron's going to stick around as long as he can. Joining us this time around, we have the return of Michael Crider, now at ReviewGeek.com. Michael, we had you on a few years ago. It's really great to get you back on. You've changed homes now. I think you were at Android Police before. Now you're at ReviewGeek.com and also How To Geek. Is that right?
Yes, Review Geek and How To Geek are the same company. Review Geek will be more interesting for people who are looking for new products to check out. How To Geek, he's been around forever. You've probably been to How To Geek and not realized it. It's how to do stuff with your tech.
Yep.
And very happy, and also, but I'm still very much into all the Android stuff that I was at Android Police. So. Yeah.
Good.
Glad to be back with you guys.
Right on. It's great to get you back, Michael. We appreciate your time tonight because this is definitely this is a big episode. There's a lot of stuff to get through. Joining us also to help us get through it all, someone who's at Mobile World Congress, Duncan Jaffrey from Osdroid.net. Duncan, it is 2 a.m. Well, no, now it's 2:30 a.m. and I'm sorry, but thank you.
Hola. No, very happy to be here. Thanks, guys. It's been an interesting show, so looking forward to tonight, Ron. And I'll try not to yuck your yum, Ron, too much with the folding phones.
Well, so you're at the event, so you will have had at least some time with a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about firsthand. But before we get to Mobile World Congress,
well, hang on. Before we get to that, on with Duncan being at Mobile World Congress, how is the Hamon?
The Hamon is as beautiful as always.
Oh man. You see,
asking the important questions here.
It was Mobile World Congress, foldable phones, but it was really the Hamon report from Duncan live in Spain that's why I'm here. So there you go.
Yeah.
They are still doing Hamon on a cone.
Yeah, you actually tweeted about that a couple of days ago. Looks delicious. I've never had that before. Send me some ham on a cone. Could you just please do me?
Please.
I digitally sent you what I could.
No, please don't send me ham on a cone. It would probably get, they'd probably pick it up at customs for some weird reason.
Yeah, actually.
You can't transport meat.
Anyway, before we get into Mobile World Congress stuff, it does appear that we have some very interesting news for people who are thinking about kind of where Android can be installed. All different places, as we learn week in and week out. Now, apparently, Android is running on a Nintendo Switch. Not only that, it's Android Q running on a Nintendo Switch, apparently. The Switch does have the same NVIDIA Tegra X1 chip that you will find in the Shield TV and the Pixel C TV tablet. So it was kind of inevitable. And Michael, I know that you were super stoked about this. Tell us why you think this is so exciting.
Yes, I was so glad to hear this news. First, because I think it's common knowledge among our particular interest group that that Android modding has kind of gone down in the last few years, and mostly that's just because the hardware and the software has gotten so much better. People don't quite feel that need and that desire to modify their stuff anymore. But also because, as you said, the Switch, which some people might not realize, runs on NVIDIA Tegra hardware. And it's, aside from the Shield TV, which is obviously NVIDIA branded, it's one of the only things that still does. And this is so exciting to me because you can have, well, we hope that eventually you will be able to have an Android tablet running on the Switch's really fantastic gaming hardware. It's got the built-in controllers here, which you can break off whenever you want. And that's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I reviewed the original NVIDIA Shield way back in, I want to say it was 2014 or maybe even 2013.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I was maybe one of the very few people who did. But it's fantastically powerful hardware in this really portable design that's made from the ground up to play games on. Now, the Switch, as great as it is not an open platform. You have to buy all the games. You have to very much play in Nintendo's sandbox. So if you can get a much more palatable version of Android on there and get all the old emulators that you want, even some of the better Android games working with those controllers, that would be a fantastic and very techie, very nerdy thing to do to your hardware. I'm so excited for how this is going to turn out.
Absolutely. It reminds me of way back when Sony had its little gaming Android device. This was probably like 2012. The Xperia Play, and it had a joystick kind of built into it. And I was like, man, for emulation and stuff, that would probably be the best thing in the world. I think the Switch is probably bested just by a tad. Better hardware, be able to potentially run a lot more current systems and just do some really cool geeky things with it. That's what we like.
And I think the Switch is the reason that we don't have a new NVIDIA Shield tablet, which a lot of people have been waiting for for a long time. And it's just not happening. Yeah. Based on some of the industry contacts we have, the Tegra hardware that they're selling to Nintendo is eating up all of NVIDIA's pipeline, all that they desire to make and sell. They're selling to Nintendo. I think they've got almost 20 million units now. Wow. So if you've been waiting on a Shield tablet, the Switch is your Shield tablet. And maybe if you wait a little longer, it will be more of a Shield tablet again.
Yes, right. Great stuff. That is about the only piece of news that has nothing to do with Mobile World Congress. The rest from here on out, save for the arena at the end of the show, is all Mobile World Congress. So we might as well just jump right into hardware. Sorry, Victor, there is no news. Maybe that was news. Anyways, we're going to hardware.
Oh.
Boo! There we go. Thank you, Victor.
Anything can happen on the Mobile World Congress episode.
You never know.
You just don't know.
Well, first, we're going to have Samsung happen because that's what we're talking about first on today's MWC Packed episode.
Yes, and you were at the event.
I was at the event last week, and it was wild. There was a folding phone there. We're not talking about that yet. Sorry, Ron. First,
don't tease me.
I'm teasing.
Don't tease me with it.
So first we're going to talk about the Samsung Galaxy S10e, which is kind of the one that isn't being as talked about as the regular S10, S10 Plus. And it's kind of being dubbed as the phone for the people, even though it's still an nearly $800 device. So it's about on par with what the Pixel used to cost. This is the 5.8-inch variant of the Galaxy S10, and it's got pretty much everything you need in it, except for that third super zoom camera. Or is it the wide angle? I think it's the wide angle it's missing. There's also the Galaxy S10. That one's $900. That's a 6.1-inch screen, dynamic AMOLED that's on all three of the devices, and that's kind of just a fancy terminology for really nice color and picture, which Samsung is known for. So, if you're buying this phone, you're going to have a great entertainment experience in your hands. If you need that bigger screen, there's the 6.4-inch with the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, and that one So both the S10, S10 Plus have 8 gigs of RAM, but the 10 Plus, that one goes up to 1 terabyte of storage. To which I'm like, what are you going to put on 1 terabyte of storage?
Yeah.
I mean, besides everything.
It's a fair question.
But I mean, do you want everything with you all the time?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I don't even know.
Why wouldn't you want everything with you at all times?
It's a good point. So the S10 Plus has the biggest battery out of all of these. It's got a 4100 milliamp. The regular S10 is a 3400 milliamp, and then the S10e has the 3100. So pretty good all around. But otherwise, they're pretty much on par with specs. So Snapdragon 855 in the US models, the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, which I did get to try, but which I didn't think it was any faster than a Pixel. So who knows? We'll see, in a daily use sort of thing. There's also, it still has a Bixby key, which you can remap, so you don't have to use it for Bixby if you don't want it to. 2 of the phones have that infinity cutout hole punch camera that we've been talking about, while the S10 Plus has a little bit of room because it has an extra front-facing camera. It has a wide-angle camera on there to kind of capture more people. And there's no more iris scanner. So all that biometric fanciness is going back a little more simple to let's just have a fingerprint scanner, except this time we'll embed it in the display. And it's supposed to work even if your hands are nasty. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say what they were touting the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, and one of my friends was like, that's the only thing that got me excited about that announcement. And I was like, it's just the same as my OnePlus, isn't it? Or what makes it different?
Apparently it maps to your ridge. I mean, from what I recall, it's one of them is capacitive and the other one is optical. So the one on the 6T is optical. And so it's just kind of like shooting your thumb versus the capacitive one, which is actually matching up. This is my understanding of it. I think there's actually probably a much better rundown out there already posted.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. 3 phones.
and
3 fantastic new phones. I mean, they're going to be kind of the standard, this is the big flagship phone for America's Android users.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Did the hole punch get in the way of any apps that you're using, or do you not notice the hole punch when you're using the phone?
You don't really notice it. Also, I know a couple people brought this up, but I thought it was really funny that the wallpaper is perfectly gradiented. So whatever that word is. So it's dark in the corner, so you don't really see the notches.
Of course it is, yeah.
They do that very, very slyly. And so, well, Duncan, you're at Mobile World Congress. Were you able to do that? Never mind.
Oh,
never mind.
Look at that.
You got one.
And you've got that pretty iridescent-y, neon-y one, the millennial one, I call it.
Mother of pearl style finish. It's quite beautiful.
Mother of pearl. So, and that's the S10 Plus. Is that the ceramic back?
No, we don't think it's the ceramic back one.
Okay.
It's not written in English on the box, so we've actually had to clarify exactly which one we've got. But from the fingerprint sensor, it practically feels no different. The big thing I have is knowing exactly where on the completely black screen I'm supposed to put my finger.
That was really hard for me too. It doesn't really show up until you hover, right? When the screen is off completely.
Yeah.
You'll get that when it comes on, but from off, you sort of have to hope. And so I've currently experienced putting my thumb on and off to find the spot.
And I'm sure that's something that, if this is your phone, if this is your jam for the next 2 years, you probably get that muscle memory going, you know what I mean? But
but it's not it's not tangible like on the Pixel 3 or on some other phones. I like that tangibility of the fingerprint scanner.
Yeah.
It does still do face unlock, even though it doesn't have the fancy iris scanning. You can still face unlock the phone for people who like that.
And what say you, Michael? Are you interested in what Samsung has done for their 10th anniversary S10? I mean, this is a big release. Obviously big news for them, as well as some news which we'll talk about in a second. But what do you think of the S10s?
When I saw the new hole punch design, I mean, it's not the first phone that has that hole punch in the screen to get the camera module up there, but I couldn't help but think of Samsung's very smug commercials poking fun at Apple with the guy with the haircut. It was like, how would you translate the hole punch into a haircut? How would that work? No,
it would be a beauty mark, because those are really in now. You just put a little beauty mark on your face. I swear that's in.
I was thinking maybe just like a little patch of hair on your forehead, and then the rest of your head is bald. I don't know. It's a very cool phone, very sleek. Samsung's got its design chops down pat. I can't imagine that they wouldn't sell just a whole lot of these to everybody who wants one.
Yeah. And they will.
I thought it was weird during the presentation that they didn't lead off with it and they didn't build up to other stuff, which I'm sure we're also building up to. So.
Yes, right.
Well, but, yeah.
We're going the order that they should have gone. No.
Yeah, but that's not what people were not talking about the Galaxy S10. People were talking about the foldable phone.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, before we move to the foldable, I should just say Galaxy Buds also. And those you have them? These are the Bluetooth earbuds with wireless charging in the case, which I love the idea of wireless charging in the case.
Yes, and they're magnetic. And they charge the minute you put them in the case. Yeah. So if you're commuting, you're charging your buds while they're in your bag or whatever, and they just
so they're like the Pixel Buds.
Yeah, and then you just like right now I just touched it and it turned on, so I can use one at a time. I can use two at a time. They're super comfortable. I haven't tried using them like on a trail or anything. I've only used them on the train and general commuting, which is fine, but they got a little shaky in my ear when I was like crossing the street really fast last week, and I'm in heels, so I'm like making bigger strides, which is shaking me, and I could feel the buds kind of like they were skipping, like I had a CD player on me.
Oh,
that's weird. That's disappointing.
That is disappointing.
So I'm gonna keep wearing them. I'm gonna give some of my first impressions at my site this week. I'm just kind of wearing them to see.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the real reason to be talking about Samsung, I did see that they have the cool the wireless charging device to device, like you can charge your friend's phone. That was really cool. Yeah, I thought
that was really cool. Yeah, and I swear somebody made a joke about how you could put an Apple Watch on the back, but you could. Because they use the Qi wireless standard. It is kind of a really wonderfully convenient thing, and I think one of the more consumer-facing things to be announced. Those are the things that I think are like very helpful for everyday people versus the million cameras, which is like a million cameras is great for content creators, but.
And that's a good point, which is a good transition into the real reason why we're here. But like Samsung, what I took away from the presentation is Samsung asserting their dominance in the marketplace and showing, okay, yeah, we've made all these great phones. You've used us. You got these great features, but we're thinking about what's next. We're thinking how to evolve it and thinking about it in a more of a consumer focused, a consumer facing manner. I think is a way that like we talked about, innovation is at a minimum now in phones, and you got to innovate in different ways. And you innovate in how people use the phones and what are the problems you have? Like, oh, my battery's dying. Oh, I've got a full charge. I can help you. Like I haven't seen anybody even think about that.
My smartwatch is dying.
Yeah,
exactly. Let me just put it on the back of my phone and charge it up for the next 3 hours real quick.
Yeah.
Cool that you can do that.
I still think it's a bit of a gimmick, because I mean, you have to absolutely nail that battery life and do it really well if you want your phone with no other chargers around to be able to get battery to anything else, either your watch or your headphones or your friend's phone. I mean, you got to make sure you're going to get home tonight with a full battery charge.
You got to put your mask on before you put your mask on before you put the mask on someone else.
But also with the way battery lives are going, and that huge battery and that huge phone. I mean, it seems like with my OnePlus 6T now, I'm getting on a full charge. Like I've got the battery widget Reborn that we love, and it's 19 hours until I'm depleted. Like I'm getting great battery life on there. I can't imagine what Samsung has done. I agree it's a gimmick, but it's a good gimmick, and they're probably have evolved the battery management to the point where it's worthy of releasing. So.
Look at me. I'm
praising Samsung.
Well, there is a lot of RAM on those phones, which is making me think they want you to play Fortnite on it, And if you're going to be playing Fortnite on that thing, I don't think you're going to get the kind of battery life that maybe, your mom who's Facebooking all the time is.
Yeah.
getting.
So yeah, a lot of people are going to get really great life out of it because they are.
Well, plus I also think the OnePlus 6T, like just the software on it is so clean. I mean, I know we have One UI. It's supposed to bring like a new dimension to Samsung phones, et cetera, et cetera. But like those Samsung phones are they're powerhouses. They're made for performance. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I'm a little dubious about even 4,000 milliamps being enough.
Talk about powerhouse by Samsung. How about this? Samsung led the entire announcement with the announcement of the Galaxy Fold. So that is the real name. Starts at $1,980. So they called it a luxury phone. They said it specifically. This is a luxury device. It's going to release on April 26th. I know that we're going to be getting one here in some way, shape, or form to review. Leo has talked a lot about that already, so we will have one to show off at some point. 4.6-inch outer display and then a 7.3-inch inner display when it's fully unfolded. 512 gigs of storage, side fingerprint sensor, 3 cameras on the back, 2 on the inside, 1 on the front, 2 batteries inside, totaling 4,380 milliamp hours. So decent amount of battery, although for whatever reason I would have expected maybe a little bit more if you're splitting it across 2 batteries, but then at the same time it's all about bulk too. When you've got 2 screens and you're doing folding, it's already going to be a bulky device, so you want to cut that down somehow. And Michael, you actually wrote that Samsung wants you to love it, but they don't want you to buy it. Explain. What do you mean by that?
The day afterwards, I wrote up my thoughts on it, as many people have. Obviously, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what Samsung is trying to do here is basically create the tentpole, the flagship, the thing that everybody thinks of when they think of the Samsung brand. This is going to be the first thing, and maybe even the last thing too, you see in their commercials over the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
As they're just showing off how cool Samsung is, how cool their tech is. And I'm not the only one who's made this connection, but it's a lot like going into a car dealership and seeing their super fast supercar. You go into a Ford and you see the Ford GT. You go into a Dodge dealership, you see the Dodge Viper, even though they know you're going to drive away with the Mustang or the Challenger or the Charger, something like that.
Or a Focus.
Or I guess in
something more
Samsung's
reasonable
terms, that would be like a $300 phone. This is your folding stuff is cool, but I've got to make rent at the end of the month. I can't spend my entire salary on this really cool piece of tech.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways this could go from Samsung's perspective if they fill everything that they make, and I don't think they're going to make maybe 1/10, maybe 1/5 of the amount of Galaxy Folds that they do for the Galaxy S10 line.
Oh, yeah.
If they sell through all of that right away, even at this huge price, then they're going, all right, people want this tech. We have to make it cheaper. We have to get it in more hands. If they don't, which is also a possibility, Samsung still gets that mind space, that thinking about this really cool tech that you can only get from them, although it's not only from them.
Well, that's true.
As we'll find out soon.
As we will find out soon enough. But I mean, so this was the first of the big, foldable kind of concepts, and well, this is more than a concept, but this kind of kicked off the Mobile World Congress foldable thing. On the outset, like I think I was pretty impressed when I saw Samsung show this off from the stage. In comparison with some of the other things that we've seen since then, though, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, Samsung, it's not a bad device, but there are other companies that are doing things that are maybe even a little bit more compelling.
It's not a great device. It's not a bad device. I think Michael nailed it in that Samsung released this because the wave of foldable phones is coming. We know it's coming, right? I've been talking about it for how long? 2 years now, right? Yeah. If we go back to earlier episodes, I predicted that it's really not going to be mainstream or really in the hands of consumers in a widespread manner until 2020 or so. That's how long it's going to take for the price point on the displays to come down. For the supply chains to get in place and all stuff like that. So we're a year at best, realistically, probably a year and a half, 2 years away from it being a realistic price point. We did say that it would probably be between $1,500 and $2,000, and so Samsung coming in closer to $2,000 $20,000 is right on the mark. They're going to be more aspirational. They're going to be more, like more pricey.
That was higher than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was.
Oh no,
be
I'm not surprised at all. This is right in line with what I thought. But that said, for $2,000, make the whole front screen the display.
Yeah.
Like I saw this and I was like, so it's the color Yoda phone?
Yeah, right.
And it was cool.
I like that phone.
The Yoda phone was great. And for those who don't remember, the Yoda phone was the phone with a e-ink display on the back panel. So on your phone, you had a regular display, and then the back was a e-ink display where you had another display going. And what Samsung did with the front, with that 4-inch screen on the front side of it, it kind of seemed a little chintzy to me. Yeah. And it was neat that it picks up. You saw in the demo and the video saw that you're on Google Maps and you fold it and you're on the same screen you're on when it's unfolded. So it gives you that kind of consistency. It's not a completely separate display, but 4 inches is not a lot of room, and that doesn't give you a lot to do there. This is purely so that Samsung can say, hey, we were first to market with a foldable phone. Remember us. And then down the road when they roll out the one that's closer to the Huawei Mate X, which I'm actually really excited about. We'll talk in a second. Then they can be like, oh yeah, well that was our, this was our proof of concept. Now this is the real phone we're giving you that folds.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, the proof of concept that you can buy for $2,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And Michael, I think your point is right too. Is that they're also measuring demand based off of how many people actually buy this to see, do people actually want this or not. And I bet you when we get this, if we ever hear sales numbers on these, you'll be surprised. I think they will move a lot more units than we would think, because people want. It's been so long since we've had something new and different and innovative in phones that enough people that have enough money to spend will be like, yeah, I'll do that because I want to have the new shiny cool thing.
I mean, it does look cool. I would sport this.
I mean, we over the weekend I showed the video to I had family over who are normals, not like us, and they were all like, "Whoa, this is really interesting!" Like it was enough to turn heads. Yeah,
interesting. Well, why don't we talk about
those concerns with that hinge?
Thank you for mentioning that, because that when it's folding in, it requires a little bit of like a gap. And then, of course, the hinge, the mechanics of the hinge, this is going to be a standard consideration on all foldable phones, at least with the technology that we've seen from Mobile World Congress, right? Is how many unfolds and folds can the hinge actually withstand over time?
And where do phones live? They live in pockets and bags and tables, and they get dusty and craft, and it won't take many times for particles to get inside that nice smooth gliding mechanism.
Just think about
and how
oils
long until it's not.
And makeup.
Oh boy,
oils and makeup that come off the face. It's gross.
Yeah.
This is not your mother's folding phone, I think.
No, but I think my mother would go crazy over this phone. I think she'd like it. She loves the Note.
Does she like the Slotch? That's the name we've given the slot notch up in the top corner.
The Slotch.
The Slotch. I like it.
I love it.
I don't know. I'm into it.
The Slotch. Early title contender. Okay, so let's talk about the Huawei one, because this is, I think, super compelling as well. Flo,
it's different, and it does it differently too.
Yeah.
So the Huawei Mate X, this one is maybe not as American-centric, just because, Huawei is not a giant player here, but it's going to be a big deal for just like the world of foldable phones and kind of where we're going to see it go consumer-wise. So this one has an 8-inch wraparound OLED display, a 4,500 milliamp battery. It's got the Kirin 980 Huawei processor inside. They make their own processors for their devices. It's 5G compatible, which if you're watching anything Samsung, there is a 5G compatible phone, but the foldable one, I think there is a 5G one, but I think it's coming later. 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. Now, this folds a little bit differently. So while it's folded, it's a 6.6 inch front screen and a 6.4 inch back screen, which you can use independently. But when you decide that you want to use it as a tablet, it unfolds kind of backwards. Instead of open like a book, it unfolds like I don't know, something else. It becomes an 8-inch kind of squarish tablet. So a little bit bigger. It's also very thin. But if you look at the renderings or at the pictures that people have taken, you'll see that it has like a little bottom part where like the charger, where you can plug it in and all sorts of things. But it's thinner than the Galaxy Fold. So it just folds a little differently.
It's got that little like junk in the trunk corner, or like edge.
Well, you got to put that stuff somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's got to be somewhere, exactly.
Well, I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, we'll just like pop it in at the bottom there. Whereas the Samsung one, it's built into the hinge.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Which explains some of the bulk of the
is,
hinge, then, right?
Yeah, I think the Huawei design is absolutely more compelling, more elegant. It's hard to deny that.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Huawei Mate X is the one that, I mean, if I had to choose one between the two, I would probably start with the Huawei. But I will, as we watch Flo kind of struggle with explaining how it folds out, it is interesting to see that it's kind of backwards intuitive to the way we use devices, right?
Yeah.
That it folds, instead of folding open, it's folding out and to the left. Which I think once you use it and once you get it and use it, then you'll feel fine. And plus, Flo, you said you can use both panels, right? So nothing says that you can't rotate it and flip it around and use it the other direction. I don't know. But this is the phone that we made fun of when we saw the video of it, of the snapping to the aspect ratio.
No, that's the Xiaomi. That was the Xiaomi.
Oh, was it the Xiaomi? I thought that was the Huawei. Oh, okay, good. Well, I was gonna say, because the videos I saw of this, it was handling the switch pretty well. Oh, you're right. It was the Xiaomi that had the weird multiple folds.
Yeah.
Right. But this one, I mean, the fact that the display goes all the way around the hinge and it's a complete, it's a fully functional when folded. That's the edge for me on this. I think that's the one that I like, and I think that the junk in the trunk kind of area for it is to be expected, and I would accept it based on the thinness of this.
I would accept it too. It only looks strange when it's unfolded. You know what I mean? But when everything's folded, then it makes perfect sense. And of course, that technology has to go somewhere. And then, of course, Huawei was not the only competitor to the Galaxy Fold. TCL was also showing off some concepts, and we talked about this on previous episode. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, how there was like a leaked kind of prototype lineup of TCLs that showed all different devices folding in all sorts of different ways. Well, TCL had that variety, their own variety of foldable prototypes on deck at MWC. They are touting their dragon hinge construction, so their own kind of approach on the hinge around which the screen folds. Some folded inward, others folded outward. Some could fold into a wearable device. TCL, of course, sells its screen technology to others, so you can imagine, this technology coming to different brands. And they're basically avoiding 2019 as a release year, opting more for 2020 because they want the price of this stuff to come down.
That's smart.
Yeah,
I will give TCL credit. Great branding on the Dragon.
Dragon hinge.
Dragon hinge is great. That rendering of someone using the phone with the display tilted up and using a keyboard, I love that. Like, I saw that and I was like, yes, that's cool,
that's
right?
Cool.
Like that. But I do worry about the Dragon hinge being similar to the Microsoft Surface tablet hinge, that bulky kind of where you see the spring, not the spring, but like the flex happening.
Yeah.
I just hate that. I just hate that look. But I like this use case that they show in this, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it develops. And interesting that TCL as a supplier is asserting themselves, saying, hey, we've got stuff coming. Other companies are doing this. I mean, I've been in meetings with very, let's see, how can I say it nicely? Very, 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 very large technology companies who are looking to 2020 and beyond, and foldable is in their roadmap. And so I think it shouldn't be surprising that we see everybody getting into this game.
Yeah.
And so this is a land grab now.
Duncan, you're at the event. Were you able to get any hands-on or get close to the Mate X or the TCL prototypes? I know TCL didn't actually allow you to handle the prototypes, but what do you think from the show?
Yeah, they've all been very guarded with letting you near it. Chris went to the Mate X opening. He got to play with the device in someone else's hands, which seems to be the reoccurring story.
Yeah.
Matteo Duas actually, he got a bit of hands-on without someone touching it. So he told me this evening some of his thoughts, and he said they actually are going to sell a case that you pop it into, which protects the back and the corners of the screen, so that you can actually use it as a regular phone in this, sort of protective case when you don't want it folded out, and that seemed quite interesting. I much preferred this design because you've got a totally normal looking phone. It'll be a bit thicker, a bit weird, but that's how it's going to be. and a fully functioned phone. You're then using that and you pop the back out, you can still be using the phone, and then bam, all of a sudden it's a fully fledged, larger screen, rather than the other model where you're using it and you have to open it like a book. The thing's got to turn on, it's got to adjust. And I think that leads to the really important part of all of this. It's easy to have a screen, it's easy to have a substrate. How long they'll last is the question, but what about the software? And that's when it really comes in. There's been Google at a few events saying how they're putting deep integration in, and anyone who's not bringing out a foldable phone or foldable screen is saying that they're working with Google until the technology is done correctly. But I think that's really going to be the proof of how these things work. Is yes, the hardware Gen 1 we know isn't going to be great, and we know that'll get iterated, we know that will get better, but is the software going to be set up properly from the beginning so that you end up with a good user experience going forwards?
Right.
And there's not been great track record with that with Google.
Yeah, I'm super curious about that. Again, kind of one of the big questions I have on this is that we're starting to kind of edge back into this idea of like a larger format tablet sort of landscape or layout on these devices, right? Once you fold it out, you're looking at more of a tablet device than you are a phone device. So as such, is this going to reinvigorate app developers to pay more attention to the tablet use case for their apps and make something that is maybe more appealing? Possibly best case scenario, this reinvigorates the tablet kind of urgency for developing things that actually work on tablets in a more cohesive, intentional way when you compare it to what Apple has with their iPads. And I mean, that's one of the strongest things about the iPad is that all those apps are made with the tablet also in mind. So you get a much better experience on those apps running on the iPad.
And to that point,
improve Android tablets.
Yeah, and to that point, Jason, and to Duncan's point, we've been coming off of the past, I want to say maybe 2 years or so, with Google leading the charge and the hardware manufacturers following, right? Really with the exception of the notch being emerged, Google's been saying this is how Android works, this is what it does. We're doing all the stuff on the dev side, and everybody's been supporting it. This is really hardware driving, and now Google's got to play catch up, and this could be a much larger impact than dealing with how does Android deal with the notch. How does it deal when a display goes from this size, kind of skinny and thin, to wide and pop back and forth, and what do the apps do, and how does Android handle that? I think Google's got to be deeply integrated in this and working with these companies to make sure it's unified. And because really, if the screen can fold and be neat and like pop out, like, oh wow, that's cool, but if you don't have the software to support it, no one will want to use it.
Yeah.
So that's a great point, Duncan.
Absolutely. So we have reached the end of our foldable segment. Ron, are you sticking around, or do you have to bolt?
I'm going to tap out. I'm going to tap out, my friends. I got to get back to the family. But it was so great to be back. I couldn't miss this. Duncan, Michael, great to see you guys. Big fans of you both. Enjoy the rest of the chat, and hopefully I'll be back soon, Jason and Flo. So
awesome.
I miss you, Ron.
Miss you, Ron.
Miss you guys too. Miss you too. Miss everybody else.
We'll talk.
I will say that the other night, as it was 3 a.m. and I was feeding one of the babies, I did think, I'm like, oh man, how am I ever going to come back on the arena? So the challenge of 2019 will be how I climb out of this hole. So
just come back with a bunch of baby apps. You're guaranteed to win, Ron.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I already thought about that. I'm like, no one's going to vote for a baby app. All right, fine. In this app, I track how many poopy diapers we had.
Hey, welcome to my apps 8 years ago. Exactly.
I remember. So, all right, have a great show. Victor,
Thank you,
thanks
Ron.
again.
Bye,
See you guys.
Ron.
Bye.
Best to you all. Bye. All right, so I'm going to take a break and thank the sponsor of this episode, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about items that are below the fold. Oh, see what I did there? I.e. 5G. Okay, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Capterra. It is 2019, so you should be asking yourself, are you still doing the same things the same old way at work? A lot of times we get stuck using software and we don't realize there's better software out there that will help us do whatever we need to do better. And maybe we're just kind of stuck in a rut. We're stuck using the same old stuff and we don't know that there's something out there that could help us. Well, start the year off right and replace that software that's causing you agony, causing you all that angst every single day. You can do that. You know which software that I'm talking about probably. You can find software to replace it, software that you love that fits your business needs at capterra.com/AAA. Capterra is the leading free online resource to help you find the best software solution for your business. With over 750,000 reviews of products from real software users, you can discover everything that you need to make an informed decision. You can search more than 700 specific categories of software, everything covering the gamut from project management to email marketing to, yes, yoga studio management software. All the little nooks and crannies, you can find something on Capterra. No matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. So join the millions of people who use Capterra each month to find the right tools for their business. Check out Capterra's free website. Visit capterra.com/AAA to find the right tools to make 2019 the year for your business. That's capterra.com/AAA, and I'll spell it out for you. capterra.com/AAA, and we thank Capterra for their support. No need to play the bumper because we're still firmly in hardware. And Flo, you got the next one.
Oh, we are still firmly in hardware, even though who knows who has 5G at this point? I mean, at least in America. So 5G phones.
We'll have phones for 5G, but we won't have 5G.
Exactly. Well, yeah, okay. So lots of 5G phones announced. Is 5G everywhere? Nobody knows. But when it's available, I guess there will be phones to do it. So the first one comes from LG, which feels kind of like a blip in the wind compared to the other device launches that were sort of announced at MWC. So LG announced the V50 ThinQ. It's a 6.4-inch OLED screen. It's got a 6.4 OLED screen, 4,000 milliamp battery, and it has 5G support at launch, in addition to an optional dual screen case, which is supposed to help sort of bridge this kind of idea of, hey, I would like that extra screen like the foldable phones, but maybe I don't want to necessarily pay for all of that. And so that case has a 6.2-inch 1080p OLED display on it that connects to the phone via pogo pins. Imagine something like the deconstructed G5, that was the phone that came apart and had those swappable modules.
Weren't they called Friends? Or
yeah, the LG
like
Friends.
The LG Friends.
LG did announce a couple non-5G phones just to kind of like round it out here. So it's the V8 ThinQ. It has a Snapdragon 855, 6 gigs of RAM, which is just an interesting thing to note because we've seen a lot of phones come out, a lot of phones announced at MWC that have more than 4 gigs of RAM in them. Yeah. So it appears that we have crossed the threshold. It reminds me of when PCs went from 4 gig standard RAM to 8 gig standard. And it's like, if you don't have 8 gigs, what are you doing? So I'm kind of seeing this shift happening in phones as well. The V8 ThinQ has 128 gigs of storage, also has biometrics, including a palm vein to unlock the phone via blood vessels in your hand. So not quite touching a fingerprint to a screen, but something special to identify you.
Wave your hand over the top and it'll identify you through your hand. And any of the demos that I saw didn't look like it happened very quickly.
No.
Seemed like an interesting approach.
And then just to kind of round that out, G8S ThinQ, which is a step down from the V8. I'm assuming the S stands for smaller, maybe. Larger, actually, it's larger. It's got a larger 6.2-inch 1080p display. It has triple rear cameras, which is also a new thing kind of happening with flagships announced at MWC. I mean, we saw the Samsung phones had 3 cameras on them. The 5G Samsung phone has 4 cameras. This one has 3.
Only
3 rear cameras.
Only 3. Oh God, only 3. I'm just kidding.
LG also announced some mid-rangers, but
LG, yeah, they pre-announced those before the show even began. Another thing on the V8 ThinQ that I thought was interesting, the display is the amp for the phone's speaker. So the display is kind of used as the speaker, I guess, through vibration, whatever. That'll
be interesting to hear because, audio is a thing that I feel like we can still iterate on a little bit, or ideate on, I should say, because, it's kind of cool. My phone has a subwoofer in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. What do you guys think? Duncan, did you get a chance to see any of these in person?
We had them in the Airbnb for a night. The phone case, screen case, was an interesting concept. When you docked it in, it actually launched almost a second phone in one mode with a second launcher. And so you could use the two things totally independently. And I can see a generation of children now using two phones with two different UIs, using each thumb to operate it. And I can't imagine the hellhole world that will become if that becomes a standard thing. So we'll move on from that. You could make it go across the whole of the screen. It was early days with the software, but it was interesting. Certainly an interesting way to go. I could see it maybe being good for games. You can have the hold it in landscape, have the game on the top controls. Yeah, similar to that image there.
Okay.
And so that's a use that would be interesting. LG makes some really nice feeling phones. They've been with Android for a long time. They know how to put it on the software. They just always seem to fail to hit a particular mark, and I can't tell you what that is. I have nothing disparaging to say about either of the phones.
Yeah.
They just seem to be fighting for recognition for that.
Yeah. What do you think, Michael? You also wrote about these this launch on Review Geek.
Well, this would not be the first phone we've seen with two distinct screens. I think Asus did one late last year for their Asus gaming phone. They had an optional add-on screen. We've seen devices like the Kyocera Echo. I didn't see anything in there that was particularly compelling that would lead me to buy what I'm going to guess is a $300, $400, $500 add-on to my already very expensive phone. I mean, the gamepad, that looks cool, sort of like a Nintendo DS kind of design, but the Nintendo DS also has buttons, so you can play your game.
Right.
And then two screens on there, two different apps at the same time. We can do that with the very large phones we already have. I hate to sound cynical because, I mean, a lot of people sound cynical when they're talking about this new stuff, but it seems like something LG decided they needed to do in order to have, get a little bit of attention away from Samsung and
you would be correct.
And all the other folding phones there.
Yeah, really does kind of feel like that.
You would be on par.
But I would be curious to play around with one and get some time with it. I saw a demo where they were swapping out kind of like controller layouts on the bottom screen, and but at the end of the day, it's still a touch screen, and so like using a controller layout but with a touch screen, you're minus any sort of tactile anything, and it's just
I never
not
liked
the same.
it. This is why I own
CES.
like 12 different game pads for my Android devices because
At CES, they were showing off this little bitty phone add-on keyboard, and it looked like one of the older designs with the slide-out keyboard. I was like, oh, I'm really excited to try something like that again. And when they did the demo, I tried to press the buttons, but no, it's all touch sensitive. And I'm like, well, what's the point? It's still just touching this flat surface and not giving me the feedback that I want in order to get my messages out quickly. So it's looking for problems to solve and not finding them.
Well, and they look nice. Like it's the kind of thing that you look at on like a screen or whatever, and you see that layout and you're like, oh, that would be really handy. But then when you really get it and you realize it is just a flat screen, that sure, it has buttons on the screen, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. ZT announced the Axon 10 Pro 5G. This device will have a Snapdragon 855, also has the Snapdragon X50 modem, so everything in this segment is 5G capable for the most part, or at least one of the phones from each maker is. This has the new Snapdragon X50 modem, so it's 5G capable, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 of storage, a 6.47-inch AMOLED display, triple rear camera, so that would be standard, wide, and telephoto, and a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It also actually does have an in-display optical fingerprint sensor, so they're going the route of the optical fingerprint sensor, not the ultrasonic, which is what the Samsung has. And I think in the hierarchy of technology, from what I understand, the ultrasonic is better and faster in some ways than the optical. So the optical is maybe a step down as far as that's concerned, but it's in there. No headphone jack, running Android Pie. This will be in Europe and China in the next few months. And Osdroid, I hear, also got their hands on this device, got some hands-on time with it. What was the feedback that you got, Duncan?
That's my hands you see in those photos.
Oh, well, there you go. So what is the feedback you got from your hands?
It's a really nice phone. The ZTE software is a little bit different to what we're used to seeing. I mean, I think if this wasn't a 5G phone, we probably wouldn't be talking about it. The Axon is a really great line. I've had a couple of the previous ones. It sort of unfortunately blurs into a sea of other great-looking hardware. I suppose this has the distinction of being out now with 5G on it. Yeah. Excuse me, but it was surely a lovely phone.
Yeah. All right. Kind of.
Duncan, did you get a chance to try out the fingerprint sensor built into that one? Because I'm curious to see how it compares to the one that Samsung is putting on their S10.
No, it was locked down. There were they only had one of those devices at the entire stand, and there was quite a long queue of people to get to it, and your time with it was quite strictly managed.
Yeah. I'm guessing the optical flavors of in-display are going to be relatively similar to each other, right? And I think that's what the 6T has. So I'm guessing, which is fine. I mean, I felt like the in-display fingerprint sensor on the 6T responded well enough. It was also pretty early for this type of technology. So I'm really curious to get my hands on the Samsung device to see what the big difference is between optical and suddenly I'm blanking, but the other technology.
Ultrasound.
Yeah, thank you. And then Flo, you got the last 5G handset in this roundup.
But not least, but although it does cost the least, but only overseas because this is a Xiaomi phone. And as we know, Xiaomi is not currently, it's not selling its things out loud in America. So Xiaomi announced the 5G version of the Mi Mix 3. It's got the same specs as the Mi Mix 3 that was announced back in October 2018. That one was the 4G edition. Except, of course, this one has 5G and it includes the Snapdragon X50 5G modem, which includes 2 gigabyte per second download, as well as the Snapdragon 855 up from the 845 on the 4G version. And it also has a GPU upgrade. So essentially, this is a souped up Mi Mix 3, and you're getting all the new gen stuff in it. And it'll be available in Europe for 599 euros, which in comparison to a lot of the phones that are sold here in America is not a bad price.
Yeah.
It's not a bad price.
Absolutely.
In converted.
So, I mean, a lot of hype around 5G, and I think the discussion always tends to come around to, okay, great, so devices can do 5G, but are people getting too excited about this technology too soon? And we've got 2 people on the show today who have not answered that question. So, Michael, what do you think? It's still too early to get excited about 5G and all these phones, even though more and more phones are aiming to support it?
Well, at these big trade shows, I mean, you've got to have something to show off, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got to hit all the buzzwords. Personally, I'm not all that excited about 5G. I know it can do some really awesome stuff, but not necessarily something that really changes the experience for consumers. Because I live in a tiny Texas town. We have LTE service from AT&T and Verizon, and I could complain about that, but it's still pretty amazing compared to what we had 5 or 10 years ago. I can walk around the park and get, 20 megabits per second down, which is fantastic where I live. There's maybe once or twice a month when I want to download a 100 megabyte file and it takes all of 30 seconds. I just, multiplying that speed by 5 or 6 times is not something I need now. It's certainly not something I need so much that I'd be willing to spend an extra $300 on my phone, even if I had the service where I live. So not a huge priority for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think, Duncan?
I agree. I think it's a term, a gimmick, a thing that people are looking forward. We're in a slow period in mobile tech, and so having something fun and fancy to focus in like 5G and gives the vendors and the carriers and, the marketing people something to focus in on. I am excited about what it means for the future. I actually think what we need for 5G is to get out of its way and just let it come in. We wouldn't want to stop iterating. We wouldn't want to not have this done so that we get to some point in the future and all of a sudden we do need it and we haven't done it. We have that situation in Australia where our broadband infrastructure was just left to the carriers for the longest time and just languished because there wasn't a commercial reason for them to move it forwards. And we're in the middle of a long, messy and botched rollout of a national infrastructure project that will end up with still a lot of people having significantly subpar internet even when the first upgrade goes through. So technology like this could really bring a competitive edge to those markets, which then in turn could actually improve the wired infrastructure. So I'm actually excited about the promise of 5G, but I don't think we know what it's for. I don't think anyone knows what it's for. It's important, it should happen, and we should get out of its way, and we should keep the marketing people out of its way so it can become whatever it needs to be.
Preach.
Yes.
So that it can help the industries that would really benefit from 5G.
Sure.
More than us playing Fortnite.
or streaming VR wherever we happen to be. Cool stuff. So have something pretty fun planned for after this next break. So we're going to take a break, thank the sponsor, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do something a little bit different to round things out, because there's a ton of other stuff from Mobile World Congress, and we don't have time to dive super deep into the details on them, but we figured out a way to talk about as much as we could. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Hover. Hover. It's all about domain names, building your online brand. Right now has never been more important, and buying a domain name for your passion is the first and biggest step to building your personal brand online. Super important. Keeping your domain name separate from hosting actually gives you the flexibility to choose the right platform for your business. No one wants to be stuck with a solution that isn't meeting their needs. And who doesn't need a domain name? Nowadays, it feels like everyone has one, so it's important, very important, that yours stands out. Hover has over 400 domain extensions to choose from. .me is just one of many of the awesome top-level domains that you can choose. .me is a super unique extension to use for things like maybe your portfolio, to showcase who you are, if you have a website that's all about your work, that sort of stuff, what you do. If you've got a portfolio website ready to launch, you should get the .me extension. It's a perfect extension for that. Hover offers the best-in-class customer support team and no upsells, a clean and simple user experience and interface, super straightforward, personalized email that matches your domain. That's going to further support your online identity. And the Hover Connect feature allows you to connect your domain name to many website builders with just a few simple clicks. I love Hover. I have a number of domain names through Hover, and it's always just the easiest thing in the world to go to Hover, do the search, find the thing that you want. It's almost like a gift when you do a search for that domain name and then you realize, hey, it hasn't been taken before, and you can find all of your options. Hover makes the whole process super simple. This year, find a domain name for your passion. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. That's hover.com/twit for 10% off your domain extension for a full year. And we thank Hover for their support of this show. So what I thought we would do for this last segment, plenty of weird stuff that we haven't talked about, plenty of new devices that we haven't mentioned yet, too much, like I said, to rattle off all the specs on each and every item. So this is going to be Mobile World Congress lightning round. I'm going to actually set a timer. I've got my phone set up here, and I'm going to go ahead and punch in 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Now, does that feel like too long or too little? I think I've got like 7 items to get through.
Let's see.
So I guess we'll find out. If we find that 2 minutes is too long, I don't think it's too little. I think we should cap it at 2. But if that feels like too long, we can check it out. And then a buzzer is going to go off. And when we hear the buzzer, we have to wrap up our sentence, and then we'll just move on. All right. We'll see how this goes. start. And so I'm going to read a little thing, and then I'm going to start the timer. All right. So the first item up for bid today, Sony's big announcement was the Xperia 1, a 6.5-inch device with a cinematic, air quotes, display, i.e. 4K OLED HDR. Yes, a triple camera on the back, but with an eye-locking autofocus that follows subjects around anchored to their eyeballs. It's also capable of recording 4K HDR at 24 frames per second in 21:9 widescreen. It doesn't have the bells and whistles like in screen fingerprint sensor, no 5G, no fold, but this phone is a tall drink of water that's set to release sometime late spring. So my question for you all, is a cinematic phone a niche direction for a flagship, or is Sony actually onto something? I'm going to go ahead and fire this off right now. And Duncan, we will start with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I saw this at Sony's booth today. It's a beautiful device. The screen is amazing. They're definitely leaning in on their heritage of cinematography and photography and their sensor business. It is a really solid entry. I think it is both a niche and a true competitor. It just is always, Sony always seems to just fail to find an audience for what is a truly great device.
Yeah, why is that? Why do you think that is, Michael? Because it's so true. I feel like Sony... And we talk about it a lot on this show, actually. Sony, constantly comes out with hardware. Many times that hardware is compelling or it's got good camera features or whatever, but people just don't pay attention. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think specifically here in the U.S., it's because they don't have those carrier relationships. They used to when they were Sony Ericsson and they had that connection going on. These days, carriers want to talk to Samsung, they want to talk to Google, they want to talk to Apple. Sony just doesn't have that presence that it used to. And there's another part of this. Sony, as an electronics company, does not have all its eggs in this basket. Sony wants to talk to you about PlayStations and televisions and even services that they're ramping out. They would love to be more successful in phones, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world for them. So they've got a little wiggle room to move with their designs.
Yeah. And then Flo... we have had Sony on this show time and time again. For whatever reason, kind of like what we're talking about here in the U.S., it's kind of hard for it to capture our imaginations. But super widescreen on the display, this is good for creators, right? What do you think about the Sony phone?
Sure, I'm sure creators would love the phone.
And that's about it.
I'm just, I miss when you said Sony, like this thing is coming out in a niche. I saw the picture of it in the Engadget article we're showing off, and it's purple. And you know how I feel about the color, anything that's colored purple. It's just my fave. But Sony as a brand, as a smartphone brand for me, kind of went away back in the day.
Yeah, it keeps going. All right, I'll go ahead.
That's an awful sound.
It really is, but that's why I chose it. All right, cool. That was fun. All right, so next up, for those of you who like lots of dots on your phone, you're going to love the newly announced Nokia 9 PureView with 5 cameras on the back, all 12 megapixels, f1.8 aperture, 2 in color, 3 in monochrome. All cameras essentially combined to make a single merged image. They say with extra detail and color than if you used it without or took a picture without. Do not expect to use the different lenses independently, though. Apparently you can't do that. Oh, and there is a dedicated assistant button on this device, which is another theme that we haven't talked about. Definitely HMD's biggest Nokia flagship yet. Priced for the US at $699, available next month. Will this many cameras compare to the perhaps simpler approach of using AI and processing to improve images? Is this worth the gamble for Nokia? And this time we'll start with you, Michael. What do you think?
Pass. I will pass on this lightning round. I haven't been able to play with Nokia's hardware, and I haven't been at the show. So somebody else take my time.
No. But you know what? This can be a more esoteric question. Like, it doesn't have to be based on specific experience. 5 cameras all combining into a single picture, yet at the same time, I feel like on my Pixel, it does a pretty darn good job with one camera of getting some pretty intense detail. Do you feel like AI is kind of making like bells and whistle hardware inclusions like this less or more necessary?
Well, it all depends on the results. It's an arms race for getting the best pictures, and how you get the best pictures, I don't think consumers really care about. as long as they're just awesome and breathtaking photos that you can take. The mechanism for taking that is not important to people.
That's
so
true.
if this camera cluster is awesome, great. If you can do it all with one, that's great too. People really don't care.
Yeah. What do you think, Flo?
People love Nokia overseas still, and I'm hearing a lot of good things about their Android phones. So why the heck not?
Yeah. And do you like the dot array on the back? Do you think it's stylish?
I don't think it's stylish at all. I think the multiple cameras thing is something that is being tried out, I think, to give consumers a little more choice in how they snap photos, but I don't know that it's very necessary.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, with the Pixel 3 and the one little lens on the back, everything's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We get along pretty well with that.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to change it a little bit for you, Duncan, because this this phone does have the dedicated Google Assistant button, which, I mean, I'm sure many of us have made fun of Samsung for having the Bixby button. Now Assistant is getting a button. Is that necessary? We're going to see this on more phones, right?
I think we are. I use Assistant a lot, and having to call to invoke it is actually a bit of a pain. So just being able to squeeze the Pixel 3 and get Assistant come up is great. Having a dedicated button, if it's remappable, is something that I think is going to be a plus going forwards. I mean, I think Google is putting this out there to their hardware partners to get what they think is their next platform front and foremost. But I think it's good.
You can.
On the, I did want to weigh in on that camera though. What they're basically doing is HDR, but with one shot, rather than having to take successive shots. All 5 of those can take one particular shot, mix it together in HDR. So They are heavily leaving into computational photography, which brings it back to what Michael says. It doesn't matter unless it's good. And if it is good, great.
Yeah, I mean, some of those sample shots that I saw actually did look like it had a lot of detail. Looked really good. It's kind of hard to know when you don't have a comparison shot to compare it to. Everything kind of looks good on its own until you compare it to something that looks even better. So,
it's also nice for Android One to have a flagship phone to live in.
Truth, yeah. Well, the Android One big presence at Mobile World Congress and beyond. There's a new logo. There're just some pretty great numbers around Android One right now. So we're seeing a lot more of them. Third, Oppo, I can never remember how you say that, showed off its own prototype 5G phone at Mobile World Congress, set for release in the first half of this year. But they also announced an unnamed device for release later this year that will have a triple camera system. And apparently what they're going to do with this, it kind of, that might sound uninspiring on its own. The differentiator is going to be its ability to shoot in 10 times lossless zoom with a periscope-style setup that reflects light internally via a mirror into an array of lenses and then into the sensor. We're talking 16 millimeter to 160 millimeter. And I'm just kind of wondering, this is awesome. I love the idea of zoom, of an actual optical zoom that looks good. Have any phones effectively solved the optical zoom hurdle yet? Could this be the one to do it? Is this a problem that needs solving right now? What do you think, Flo? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I think even with the Pixel 3's zoom, you can still see those limitations in a smartphone.
Yeah.
And it would just be nice to be able to go to the zoo and zoom in on an animal and not have it look pixelated. I think a lot of people would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going to the zoo, shooting zoomed in pictures of the lion that's all the way over there.
Meerkats are very small, it's hard to see them from afar. So cats a little easier.
Truer words never spoken. Duncan, do you happen to know, was Oppo showing, I know they had kind of an announcement about these things. Were they showing them off in person?
Yeah, they were.
What did you think?
So 2 years ago, they brought a 5x zoom demo to MWC. This year, they've come back with an announced future product and a 10x zoom. And you can see the image in there. You could use the camera to zoom in on the model of the city and get some really great detail. So look, it is a true optical zoom. You're getting the photons from just that area onto the sensor. So that's going to maximize the quality that you can possibly get from that area. But the one thing that stood out for me was that when you are doing that, any instability in the shot will be magnified, because if you have a small drift with a wide field, that's not going to make a big difference. If you have a small drift in your hand with a very narrow field, that's going to be a lot greater percentage of those pixels that you're moving around on. And so shutter speed and aperture and blurriness was sort of what I would worry about. I have troubles getting steady shots sometimes with a wide.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, and I'd like to see it move forwards.
And Michael, what do you think? Is optical zoom the next frontier on making sure that we have good cameras in our phones?
This is super cool. I don't know if it'll be the next frontier, but I love it. And the stabilization issue is a real problem. I mean, if you've ever used a DSLR with a long zoom, you know how that goes. Yeah. But they managed to solve and get really steady shots with an optical image stabilization in a tiny phone module, which is some really cool tech. They've augmented that with digital image stabilization. I think if they can get the hardware that does this real, legitimate optical zoom at a 10 power, which I never thought they'd be able to cram in there, they can solve the stabilization thing too. Maybe 3 or 4 years before we see that all come together, but I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Awesome. Alcatel unveiled 3 new devices for the mid-tier. The first two, the 3 and the 3L, have 5.94-inch HD Plus displays, teardrop notches, dual camera arrays, headphone port, and then there's the Model 3 coming out ahead in this spec game with better Snapdragon processor, more RAM. The third device, the 1S, has a 5.5-inch 18:9 display, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, 3060 milliamp hour battery, and a Speedtrum 1S processor that apparently includes a dedicated AI processor on the cheap. I know I don't have a whole lot to say about Alcatel because I feel like Alcatel phones in the U.S., like there isn't a whole lot of presence of Alcatel phones in the U.S. So maybe us U.S.A.ers won't have a whole lot to say about this. But Duncan, I know you will, because apparently Alcatel is a really big brand in Australia. Talk about it a little bit.
So Alcatel are actually quite large from the point of view of units shipped in Australia. They are shipping more towards the lower end, which is why these 3 phones are quite interesting. What it's showing is this incremental increase at the bottom. We're always talking about the flagship phones and what it's getting and how it's better in this regard, and a 10x telescopic optical zoom using a periscope, and that is great. But for democratization of technology, it's also important that the lower end comes up, and these phones do represent a significant improvement in the low and middle specs that many people buy. So if you're walking in to buy a $79 prepaid phone to go on a pay-as-you-go plan or a top-up plan, then having these phones get better, have features like fingerprint sensors, and I think one of them had NFC from memory. That's important to that segment of the market. And it's not a segment of the market that's fancy or fun or that we talk about, but it's actually really important. So seeing how companies are bringing that forwards, and I want to start seeing what they do with software from the point of view of security updates, which is why I really like the Android One platform. But no, on their own right, these phones are important because a lot of people buy these phones because that's all they can afford, or it's all they want. And, they should have a good experience. It'd just be good if they could have a good and safe experience.
Absolutely. Okay. So we will, I don't know, Michael, Flo, have anything to add on Alcatel?
Not really.
Yeah.
Just that I know that they are big overseas, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to maintain their status with all these other, like with Android One coming into the, the sphere.
Oh gosh.
Or excuse me, Android Go.
There we go. All right. Excellent.
Sorry,
Thank you
Michael.
for that.
It's all right. I didn't have anything to add there. Go ahead.
I think you'll have something for this one. If you like your battery with a bonus phone, then you'll want Energizer's PowerMax P18K Pop, an Android Pie device with a, brace yourselves, 18,000 milliamp hour battery. Pop, as in it'll pop the seams of your pants pockets. It's as thick as 2 fingers and packs a 6.2-inch full HD Plus display, 6 gigs of RAM to 128 gigs of storage. But seriously, you could talk on the phone for 90 hours. And if you never use it, you'll still get 50 days in standby mode. I know people want bigger batteries, and so that's great. But Michael, who is this for?
Oh, for anyone who wants the absolute biggest possible battery they can get, I think it's wonderful. I think the Android Police headline on this was that Energizer made an 18,000 milliamp battery, stuck a screen on the front, and called it a phone.
Yes.
And hey, so somebody wants that. I remember back in the day, the appeal of an unlimited phone plan was that you never had to think about it. You just do whatever you want, and you don't worry that you're going over and you get charged for more data. This is the phone battery equivalent of that. You have this phone, you never think about your battery ever. You plug it in once a month and you're good to go. I mean, it's 5 pounds in your pants, but that's a secondary concern. This is the luxury of not having to think about it.
What do you think, Flo? I know that you take your battery seriously. Do you take it this seriously? Pop seriously?
Somebody will take it seriously. I could see this being used in the industrial setting. Somebody who needs like a work phone that needs to have a lot of battery and have you available at all times. I could see this becoming a thing. And how interesting to have the Energizer Bunny get into smartphones.
Yeah, well, and we have seen Energizer phones before
That's
this too.
right.
So
I forgot about that.
A few things going. Duncan, do you think this is more meant to be a weapon than a phone?
I don't know what it's meant to be. Like everything will have a home and a user.
That's true. Even this will have a home in your pocket and nothing else.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, man.
If there's any phone that needs a wireless charger on the back, this is the one.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, that's their next generation version of this. HTC, if you remember them, announced a new 5G hotspot for Sprint and running Android called the 5G Hub. I mean, really, it's an Android device with a 5G hotspot built in. It has a Snapdragon 855, an X50 modem, of course, a 5-inch display, 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage with a micro SD card slot on board, thankfully. And 7660 milliamp hour battery. But did you know that 5G is fast? And to demonstrate, HTC allowed attendees to stream super hot VR from the cloud via 5G using the device. So anytime you're traveling for business trips or around the country, you don't need to lug your VR setup with you everywhere you go anymore. Which I know is something that you always have to do, Flo. You always have to lug your gigantic VR setup with you everywhere you go. HTC's been on the ropes for a while. This is definitely something different. Do you want more like this, Flo?
You got to do something. Yeah. You got to do something to make the headlines, and this is certainly, this could have a use somewhere.
Yeah. Especially if you like VR and like streaming super hot VR from wherever you happen to be. Is this good direction, Duncan, for HTC? Because HTC has had some problems as of late, and apparently phones aren't working quite well for them these days.
They have. I took my booth tour of HTC today and actually got some time with this. It's actually coming to Australia as a first launch partner. Telstra, one of our major networks, is going to sell this as one of their primary 5G hub spots. One of the things that's been marketed as is actually a broadband replacement. It has an Ethernet jack on the back, which is something that you don't always get on these portable hubs. So you put that in the right location, plug it into your switch, and you can run your entire house, your routers, everything from that, and get your 5G internet connection. And so that is an important differentiator. The Android side of it is just so much craziness that I love it. They had a demonstration set up where they were using Android to Chromecast to a TV. They had a game running on it, and they had a game controller, and basically saying this is a geek's product. If you are a geek and you want wireless internet, this may be the product for you, because you can run any Android app on this basically. It's crazy, and I love it.
Michael, are you a geek, and do you want this?
I am a geek. I don't know if I want this. I know they've been pushing 5G for these unconventional uses, and one of them is, like Duncan said, plugging everything in your house into it all at once, even if it's just a regular old home or an apartment. And then obviously this will appeal to people who go camping, who use their RV all the time. Yeah. They've got similar designs for smaller and less dramatic hubs right now. I think just sticking a movie on there would be neat. But I do have to say that streaming super hot VR sounds really cool. It's the most innovative 5G hub I've seen in years.
Well, and I think that was actually a pretty smart demonstration of the potential of 5G. If your mobile internet is capable of streaming something like VR, and doing it, convincingly, like, I don't know, I wasn't there, I didn't get to test it, but that's a pretty tall feat for a mobile internet. That's pretty impressive. So I think that's interesting. Finally, Nubia showed off the Nubia Alpha smartwatch sporting a flexible OLED display that wraps around the wrist with a 5:1 aspect ratio, roughly. It's running a custom version of Android that allows for dragging info up and down on the display, as well as swiping left and right for app switching, which includes hand gestures above the device, by the way, in the air. And even has a few physical buttons on the side, if that's your jam. It'll fold around the wrist up to 100,000 times, which should be plenty, considering you'll wear it for a month before you get tired of wearing the Future on your wrist. But props to Nubia for trying something new. Is this the answer to anyone's wearable prayers? Tell me the Future will improve on this look. What do you think? Is this hot, Michael, or is this not?
This is a gimmick. We briefly considered including this in our folding phones roundup because the screen technically does fold, and technically it is a phone. But if you look at the specs, it's a watch platform, and they're just doing some neat stuff with it. That's all it is. It's a sci-fi prop.
It is. It totally is very sci-fi. What do you think, Duncan? Did you get a chance to throw this brick on your wrist?
I did put it on my wrist this afternoon, and I think I know what it's like to be an inmate.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it kind of looks like that. You're right.
It is a hefty piece of metal. It didn't fit properly, so that made it feel a little more loose. Yeah. Look, well done for doing it is the only nice thing I have to say from my experience.
It's the Future. It's just not the Future we asked for. Flo, you've talked a lot on this show about watches that would fit on a woman's hands, on a woman's wrist. What do you think about the Nubia?
Well, I saw my friend Caitlin McGarry, who works over at Tom's Guide. She posted a picture of her wearing this thing or playing with it today in her article, and I was like, nope. So,
so
my
there's
friends
that.
and I are not, we'd like something a little smaller.
Yeah, or something. I mean, you can't get any narrower than that. That's for sure. Otherwise, the screen's gonna be so narrow you can't really do anything with it. There's just something, I don't know about the wraparound screen on a wearable. I don't know how necessary it is, unless
It's
it truly
unnecessary.
hugs your wrist. The way like putting a band and like a I don't know, a rubber band around your wrist actually did, and that's going to require technology that we just don't have yet.
Yeah,
I think there's a great contrast here in when I called it a sci-fi prop, and the thing is, some sci-fi props become real. Like all the folding phones that we've seen today remind me of nothing so much as those little tablet computers they have on Westworld, which if you haven't seen the show, it's basically the same idea. They just fold out and it looks really cool. And something else that sci-fi often has is transparent screens where the guy's looking at it and he sees through it to what's behind it, and that says Future. And we've been able to do that now. We've had that as a real thing for 5 or 6 years, and no one has used it because it's dumb. And this falls squarely into the second category for me.
Yeah, we'll see what it evolves to. Maybe 10 years from now we'll be like, see, Nubia knew what they were doing. See? And that is the end of our lightning round Mobile World Congress edition. Was that difficult? Was it hard? Like, oh no, who's he gonna ask? I don't know.
No,
I didn't want to I didn't want to stress anybody out, but
I know we went over a couple times, but I think it's a great way to handle all this news.
That's okay. It's fun, like to change things.
Had a good cadence.
All right, and
I would like to say something very quickly,
Yes.
just on the subject, because we were briefly talking about watches that women like to wear. I really liked wearing the Galaxy Active.
Oh, okay.
I wore it last week. I took one and I just asked an attendant, "Can I wear this? I'll bring it back to you." And I wore it around while I was taking my pictures and my B-roll. And that strap, that active strap, whatever is going on there, is so comfortable compared to, when paired with that watch body and everything. So I might be wearing a Samsung watch this year and just pairing it with my Pixel device.
No reason.
Is it standard silicone?
Yeah, I believe it is. It feels exactly like the Apple Watch one. So it's super comfortable and it feels nice and soft and breathable, which is a big deal for me because I often feel like I'm sweating underneath those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looked good. Like it looked appropriately fit for your wrist and
and I'm going to try and see if I can nab one of these because I really want to talk more about it because I'm wondering if Wear OS is going to have to compete. I think it's going to be competing inside its own little ecosystem. Sorry about my blurry video. It's hard to take video on your own.
It is. It absolutely is. Hey, Samsung's already proven to a large degree to many people that Tizen is a really great wearable platform.
Well, I see a lot of people wear these watches in the wild, like because these are the watches they give to you when you buy a Samsung phone. Yeah. So of course you would wear that.
Yeah. And if you have a Samsung phone, especially, it's going to, play in Samsung's world.
Thank you, everyone, for watching my raw B-roll.
The best B-roll ever. We appreciate you going, by the way, Flo. Thank you for going.
It was fun. It was good. It was good to be there in that crowd and to get the real-time reaction of everything going on. And I feel like MWC and just everything going on phone-wise, I finally feel like we have a little bit of innovation happening. Finally.
Right. Since you were at the event, were you one of the people who gasped at the price? I just want to know that.
No, I did not gasp, but I definitely, when you're watching those YouTube videos and you're just like, oh, like it was it was definitely like that.
Yeah. That price reveal, you could definitely hear them on the live stream. All right. And with that, we're going to jump into some apps in the arena. Let's do it.
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
All right, you went and voted. You went and voted last week at twit.to/AAA poll 408. And the winner last week, let me see here, was, oh boy, it was kind of close. Screen Crop.
Gasp.
Nice. Screen Crop wins 42.63%. Flo, good job on the win, man.
I thought Smartphone Tycoon had it easily.
I didn't know. I thought it was prime for the arena, and it was close.
It did really good.
It did well.
So good, Jason.
35.79%. Second place, Smartphone Tycoon. Third place, Exploding Kittens, which is a fantastic game. So even though it only got 21.58%, you should still download it and play it because it's a really great game. So let's see here. I know that Wade County threw the results in the chat room. Thank you, Wade County. Through week 7, guests are in the lead once again, 23. Flo, you are right behind at 22, so you're doing awesome so
Trying
far.
to take advantage of Ron's time off.
Yeah, I know. This is everyone's time to surpass. Ron is third at 16. I'm still holding up the back at 13. Even with Ron out, I can't quite get out of fourth place, but that's okay. So thank you, Wade County, for
posting. You do so
those.
Much for us, Jason.
I do everything else.
It is our fault. That's why we have time for apps, because we just let you do all the work.
Yeah. That's okay. I'm happy to do all the work. All right. So my game this week is super simple and kind of silly, kind of stupid, but it's also just kind of funny in the mechanics of it. It's called Steppy Pants. And
okay.
The name in and of itself, reminds you, of course, of the Flappy Bird, which, in the game Flappy Bird, which, basically means this is a game that you're going to pick up and you're going to get frustrated at timing if it ever launches. Apparently it's stuck or something. So that's right out of the gate. That's not good. Here, I'll launch it again. There we go. So basically, take the old adage, step on a crack, break your mother's back, right? I think it goes something like that. This game is all about not stepping on that crack because you might break your own back. All right, so I'm all loaded up, Victor. So here I am. I'm the guy. You should have some audio coming through. As you tap, you take a step. So if I hold down for a really long time, this happens. And I'm done. If I tap really quickly, I take short steps. And not stepping on the crack is the goal. So I have to step over it. It's actually really hard because you think you can time it right, but the action moves so quickly that and you don't want to spread out. Dang it. And so, you're trying to get as far as you can. And it's just, I got to say, it's kind of satisfying to watch the guy fall every time. But, as you get further along, you end up, encountering like TNT in the ground that you have to step over. Future levels are lava. So if you remember being a kid and you didn't want to step in the lava, so the play field becomes that. Don't step in the lava. Ooh, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm going faster. Dang it.
Challenging.
Yes. Okay. This is actually a mode where it's like a continuous stream. If I go back home and so there's floors lava. I haven't quite made it there yet. But if I go to Steppy Streets, let's see here. Where am I at? Okay. So I've already kind of gotten, dang it. I have to, and there are ads. So anyways, it is Steppy Pants. And yes, it's ad supported, but you know what? Hey, support your devs, as Flo often says. Steppy Pants, it's frustrating, but it's also a lot of fun. And you can try to not step on that crack and break your back. All right, Michael, I've got your app installed, and I'll show it off while you talk about it.
Great. Well, my pick to tie in with the news about the Switch, where Tetris 99 is blowing up the charts, I want to talk about 99 Bricks Wizard Academy. And that's a complete coincidence on the name, but it is a Tetris game. So essentially, this is Tetris in reverse. Instead of trying to clear lines, you are building up your Tetris blocks and making a tower. Like the Wizard's Tower is the theme that they've got going on. So what you do is you just drop your blocks. It plays exactly like Tetris, except the point is to build a tall and stable tower instead of clearing lines and keeping your screen clear. So you can go ahead and drop it down there.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that. Okay.
So you can swipe left and right and tap to turn around your blocks, etc.
And as I stack taller, it becomes more. Oh, things are falling. Hey, stop that!
It does have more realistic physics than the actual Tetris. So you got to use these Tetris blocks and build them in such a way that they're stable and you can get them higher and higher.
And the goal here is not to get a perfect Well, I mean, maybe it is because that's more stable, but you don't have to kill yourself trying to get a perfect Tetris because you're not trying to remove anything. You're trying to just build a stable tower, right?
Oh, the great thing is you can go as wide or as narrow as you want. Obviously, if you can get it nice and flat, wide is better and more stable,
right?
But it goes slower because you've got to fill it in with more blocks. So there's all kinds of strategy you can use to go through it. And as you progress in the game, you'll get sort of mini bosses that will come in. They'll freeze your blocks. They'll make them giant sized and give you all kinds of hurdles as you're building up your tower. It is great fun.
I want to accidentally go, oh no. No. Dang it. And now I get to set the top on my tower. And hey, it stayed in place, so I did all right. I passed that level. That's awesome. I love it. It's a cool kind of twist on the Tetris mechanics that we're all very used to at this point. Very cool. It's called 99 Bricks Wizard Academy, and it is free. It's a free download, and it's got a $1 in-app purchase to remove the ads right now. So that's the format we like. Right on. That is the format that I like. I wish that Steppy Pants had the ability to remove the ad. So I'm happy that 99 Bricks Wizard Academy does. All right, Duncan, I will show off your app. Tell us about it.
Okay, today I'm bringing Our Groceries shopping list to the arena. It's a fairly standard shopping list or to-do list management app, but the reason that I've been using this is that it is fully integrated with pretty much every Google form factor you can think of. So there's an assistant skill for it, so you can just say, hey G, ask Our Groceries to add bread, milk or eggs, and it'll add it on there for you. You can see it on your phone, obviously. It's on the web. They also have an Android Wear app. So if you use Android Wear, you can walk around the shopping center and have it in the watch in low power mode, but actually see the shopping list and just tick things off as you go and they disappear. It's multi-platform. So if you come from a divided household with Android and iOS all living together in harmony, there's an Android iOS app for this as well. So the whole family can sign up for it and use it. I find the stock Google shopping list is hard to find, slow to load, and it's something I can't get my wife to use because it's just too difficult to find it anywhere. Whereas I put an app like this on her Pixel and it's fine. She just goes to it and use it. You're on the way to the shops. and she can just say, "Hey Google, add XYZ." Oh, my phone's go off, of course. To the shopping list, and when I get there and pull out my watch, there it is. Something I didn't know which was to be there is on the list.
Nice.
So it's simple. There is a paid version, and I can't for the life of me remember what it unlocked, but I bought it because support your devs. It could have got rid of some advertising, or maybe unlocked some.
It definitely gets, it definitely unlocks some features and gets rid of advertising. It's $4.99 for the paid version.
Yeah, it's been well worth it. I use this every single day. The Google Assistant integration is the best of all of the shopping apps, and I did a little bit of a feature where I basically installed them all. And this had the best success. When you asked to add something, it would actually add it. My experience with others, you'd ask for something and say, "I don't know how to do that," and that wasn't the assistant. That was the action layer back in the day. So that's my app.
Nice. It's called Our Groceries Shopping List. Right on. Good pick. And that is free with a $4.99 unlock app that you can purchase as well. Good stuff. And Flo, I have your app installed. Tell us about it.
So, Jason, you might want to load up a video while I just kind of introduce the app. Okay. So can maybe show the audience what you can do. So as I told everybody at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to find apps that do things that I need. And so one of those apps I was looking for is an app to video editing app, something that I could use to edit video on the go, to make, little Instagram videos for stories, to make little social media videos as I need. And so I discovered Video Editor and Photo Editor by InShot to be kind of one of the ones that gave me exactly what I wanted and didn't cost too much. So it's free to totally try out, but there are a lot of ads in it, which could really annoy you. So you're going to want to pay a little bit to kind of get rid of those ads. And things cost you can pay $2 to get rid of the ads, and then $2 per each pack, because, photo and video editing apps, there are different parts of the app that you can unlock. Or you can pay for an annual membership fee like you would on some other apps to kind of unlock everything. I just paid for it as I needed. So, but I'm finding that it does everything that I needed to do, which is easily stitch together videos. It lets you, so you can go through the timeline, easily stitch together videos, add multiples. You can do filters and effects. So if you want to add little effects to your videos, and then you can apply that to all the different clips that you have going one at a time. You can also crop the video. So if you shot it in, let's see, sorry, I'm trying to guide Jason while watching him on the camera.
Sorry, I'm just having fun applying weird effects and stuff.
All right, then I'll just talk about it. So yeah, you can crop the video as you need. So if you end up taking a video vertically, you can crop it into a square so it can fit on Instagram or however you want. You can add all sorts of cool effects. You can increase the speed of the video if you want to do a time lapse, you want it to go fast. It's a really easy video trimmer. It's super easy to share and save. It's super easy to add your own music as you need. It accepts all sorts of different audio files, including MP3s and M4As. These are all the different ones that I've used. And I really am just happy that I found an easy to use video editing app for Android. It's not too, it's not invasive in any way, except for the ads that pop up. But, you've got a slow-mo video mode on there if you want to use it. You've got this cool, was the mirror effect. And I'm having a lot of fun with this app. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen a couple of these videos over the last week, because I was playing around with some of the Samsung footage that I took. And I'm going to have a lot of fun using this app this year to make my social media a little more dynamic, so to speak. I like it. So it also does photo editing, which I don't use it for photo editing, but if you wanted to pop photos in there as part of your video, you could.
There, perfect for Instagram, right? Because Instagram only lets you do square things. Yeah. No, wait a minute. They stopped doing that a long time ago.
No. You still have to do a square for an Instagram post. You want it long ways if you're doing a story.
Oh. But you don't have to do square, though, right?
No, and actually they have pre-made ratios for all the major social networks. So Instagram, IGTV, YouTube, Musical.ly, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever you're using. There's also borders and a no crop. And you don't have to worry about a watermark, which is one thing that I found existed on a lot of video apps that I was downloading on the Play Store.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't crash either. This app has not crashed on me. Oh, but you will have to pay to get rid of some things, again, as I mentioned. But as I always say, support your devs, because this is a lot of development to make an app like this to run well on a smartphone and to be effective.
Well, that's interesting. So if you want to remove this watermark, you hit it, you can remove permanently for $3, or you can do a free remove by watching an ad. So see, there are ways to do it for free.
Exactly.
And there you go.
If you only want to use it once in a while, for instance.
Yep. Very cool. I love it. Video editor and photo editor by InShot. InShot, I believe, is
not the most nice name.
Well, InShot, I think, is the name. It's always funny to me how they do their titles in the Play Store.
I think it's like SEO in the Play Store. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Totally. But the app is called InShot, and look for it to edit your videos. All right, so twit.to/AAA poll 409 is where you go to place your vote for your favorite app this week. Is it Steppy Pants, 9 Bricks Wizard Academy, Our Groceries Shopping List, or InShot Video Editor and Photo Editor? You can place your vote there, twit.to/AAA poll 409, and we'll check in on it next week. Victor is hovering when he chooses InShot.
Yes, because Victor wants to make videos.
Victor is a video editor. So that makes sense.
That's also true.
Yeah, and doing the square thing seems like a lot less work in this app.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Twit.to/AAA poll 409. Good work, Flo. You got the first vote. And I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to our guests because, at least for one of them, it is ridiculously late. And I feel so bad because you got to get to sleep. Duncan Jaffrey from Ozdroid, we're really happy and thrilled that you took time out of your sleep to join us tonight.
Thank you.
And share your perspective from Mobile World Congress. Thank you so much, Duncan.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great being on as always.
Absolutely. You're still doing lots of coverage. When do you head home?
So we've got all day on the floor tomorrow. So tomorrow is a bit of a fun day. I think I've found what my product of the show will be, which for me is this meter. Smart meat thermometer. So I'm gonna challenge the floor to beat that being my product of the show. So tomorrow is sort of a free day running around all of the back halls that I don't have the big announcements and look for those really great products like this one.
Yeah.
And then it's we have a meet-up actually with Matteo, the deputy team captain of Team GG&G. So just remember the vote for either of the guest apps this evening. I don't mind which is a vote for Team GG&G.
It's true.
Meeting up with him tomorrow night with his Skyscanner crew, and then I hop on a plane the next morning.
Oh man! And wow, you've already been there quite a bit of time, and then we've kept you up this late. But at least tomorrow's your fun day.
Duncan went to the past. We, like in California, we're going to the future. He just came from the future and went to the past.
I don't know. It kind of hurts my brain to think about it. But I do know that you need to get some rest, and that everybody should follow your coverage at ozdroid.net and have a really great time. Well, first of all, get some great sleep, and then have a really great time tomorrow. And say hi to Matteo for us.
Will do.
Right on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Duncan. Really appreciate your time. And Michael, it was great to get you back. I'm super stoked to get you on tonight, and I hope you'll join us again sometime in the future.
Well, thanks for letting me come on such a big show. I was happy to get to cover just a multitude of stuff today.
I know. It's kind of crazy. This episode is always crazy, so full of hardware. ReviewGeek.com and HowToGeek.com. That's where people find you.
That is us.
Right on. And then you're on Twitter as well, at Michael Crider. Yeah, thanks again, Michael. Thanks for reaching out. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
It was really great to see you. And then Flo, you weren't in studio, but I almost felt like you were, because this TV is so crystal clear.
Oh, that's good, because I bought new cleaning fluid for all my electronics, actually.
So you clean the camera?
Yeah, I did. I sprayed it and I cleaned it, and I was like, let's make this all nice and shiny.
It's about time.
And I also redid my room, so I have a lot of light bouncing off the walls, so you can actually see me in here now.
Yeah, it's totally true. Actually, now that you mention it, it's well lit.
So this is actually a good segue. I've been doing a lot of restructuring, in my office, in my work life. I have a lot of fun stuff I'm working on right now behind the scenes. So kind of stay tuned for that. Anybody out there who wants to. And this week I will have a little teeny tiny little first impressions of the Galaxy Buds over here on my website. And I write all over the web. So just come check me out, florenceion.com, and on Twitter at OhThatFlow.
Fine. Do a search for Florence Ion online and you will find the Flow feed at florenceion.com.
Yes.
Thank you, Flo. It was great hanging out with you. Thanks to Victor for all of his hard work on the show, jumping through fiery hoops the entire episode.
No problem.
Appreciate your work. Thanks to Ron for taking time from his family and joining us. That was awesome. And thanks to Alex, who's standing there looking at me menacingly like he's going to kick my butt.
Hi, Alex.
He just might. Oh, and he waved with a smile. I'm here on Twit. This is what I do, so you can find me here. But that is it for this week. Leave us a voicemail, 347-SHOW-AAA. Send us emails. I'm sorry we didn't get to them this week, but we just had too much stuff to talk about. AAA@twit.tv. Find us at Android Show on Twitter. Android Arena apps list. All of the apps that we review can be found at twit.to/Android apps. Show notes and past episodes can be found at twit.tv/AAA. And you can watch us every Tuesday live starting at 5 p.m. Pacific at twit.tv/live. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody. Bye.